Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, April 19th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The mask mandate for mass transportation is no more, thanks to a judge's ruling. For now, the Justice Department is declining to appeal unless the CDC believes the requirement is still a threat to public health. But as KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado tells us, you still might want to keep your mask close at hand.
The sun is shining in Old Town San Diego. A perfect day to ride the trolley. And it's the day after a federal judge scrapped the mass transit mask mandate, meaning wearing a mask on public transportation is now optional. For San Diegan David Morrison, this makes no difference.
We still are in a pandemic. I am not going to go riding on the bus, the trolley, public transportation, the airlines, and take my mask off. Just because everybody thinks, oh, it's fine to do that. I don't trust it.
To be clear, the trolley run by the Metropolitan Transit System still requires masks, but the North County Transit District does not. This shows why the federal ruling is sure to confuse people. It allows every transit system and airline to make their own rules. James Reitzman says he doesn't like wearing a mask and thinks it should be a personal choice.
I think people can continue to use them if they want to. And I know in other countries, people have been using them for years. And so I kind of think that's how it should be. If you feel like you need an extra layer of protection, then bring it.
San Diego International Airport is packed and almost back to pre-pandemic crowds. While you can hear the loudspeakers announce CDC social distancing measures, wearing a mask is optional in the concourses, and the TSA will no longer require them. Most major airlines did away with their mask mandates as soon as the ruling was made. But looking around the terminals, it's a mixed bag, with a majority of people not wearing masks.
I'm just happy to be able to fly without a mask for once. Yeah, just looking forward to that, having the mask off and being able to breathe a little bit easier.
Better safe than sorry. Yeah, especially since I have a family where I have some younger kids who aren't able to get the vaccine, and then I also have some older family members that I see.
We understand it is a very confusing time for travel.
Airport spokesperson Sabrina Lopiccolo says even though they don't require one here, it's important to call your airline and the place you're visiting.
Whether you're traveling domestically, internationally, there's going to be different rules. Just do your due diligence and do some research before you arrive at the airport.
Meanwhile, the CDC is not happy with the ruling because officials are monitoring a new, more contagious COVID variant. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Russian forces are ramping up attacks in eastern Ukraine, launching more missiles today. And in turn, a large number of Ukrainians are fleeing the area. Reporter Chris Nguyen with the struggle taking place in the region.
In Ukraine, Russian forces are ramping up attacks in Donbass, a sprawling region that blankets much of the eastern part of the country. The battle for control of the territory, which has been the front line of Ukraine's conflict with Russia since 2014, could define Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion after his forces suffered failures in Kyiv and across much of central and northern Ukraine. As Russian troops advance, thousands of civilians are trying to flee, but unsure of where to go next.
Over the last days, there has been a continuous increase in shelling and attacks.
In the southern city of Mykolaiv, residents describe the ongoing chaos.
This sound just woke me up and I was like paralyzed. And then in 3 seconds, this huge explosion. And you understand that you have no time to run. You just have to live through this.
Ukrainians devastated by the horrors of war at the hands of the Russian military.
I feel only hate. We can't forgive it, maybe for life.
Russia continued its bombardment of cities Monday with at least 4 missile strikes reported in the western city of Lviv, where at least 7 people were killed, according to Ukrainian officials. In Washington, Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
With the rise of gun violence in San Diego and across the state, California State Assembly members are considering a bill that would allow Californians to sue gun makers and sellers. AB 1594 would make changes to laws over gun liability. It was introduced by Assemblymember Phil Tang and other state legislators at the end of March and was discussed today for the first time by the Judiciary Committee.
I think it's not very fair that the toy industry has a lot more liability than the gun industry. While in California we pride ourselves on having fairly strict gun control laws, we have done better than other states, but still not good enough.
While many gun violence survivors agree with the bill, some gun rights advocates say the bill is too broad and that almost anyone can take action against the industry. Tailgate Park is a 5+ acre parking lot that's been used for parking for Padres games for years. But late this afternoon, the San Diego City Council voted to sell the lot and develop it into a mixed-use commercial residential area. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live downtown where the City Council is considering the matter. John?
That's right, Maya. I am actually monitoring the City Council meeting on a laptop computer right over there, and they still are discussing it right now. The council members are asking questions of city staff. But here's what we're talking about. You talked about it in the lead-in to me. This is it, Tailgate Park, little over 5 acres here. And this is what is called the East Village Quarter. That's the name of the development the Padres want to do here with a couple other developers. The $1.5 billion project is slated to bring a collection of mid and high-rise buildings featuring 1,800 apartments, 50,000 square feet of retail space, and a public park. The project is a joint venture between the Padres and 2 other development companies. It was unanimously approved by the City Council's Development Committee last month, but controversy surrounds the deal. Some public housing advocates say the city should be prioritizing more affordable housing, not selling city-owned land to developers to build a lot more expensive units. Very few people showed up in chambers for this, but there were quite a few who gave their viewpoints in public testimony virtually. But there was one man there. We talked to him about why he is opposed to the project.
I support the highest and best use of San Diego's assets in general. With regard to Tailgate Park, I don't think the current sale agreement is in the long-term best interest of the city.
Now we're back out live, and I want to make clear that the Padres did agree to speak with me, but only after the vote was taken, and as I'm still monitoring it now, they are not to the vote yet. The land is being sold for $35.1 million due to a procedure set up when Governor Jerry Brown was in office. You may recall he dissolved all the state's redevelopment agencies during a particularly bad financial crunch, and the upshot of that is that $35 million has to be split between several different entities, and when all is said and done, San Diego only will get 17%, which comes out to about $6 million. And there's yet another fly in the ointment. The deal must be completely wrapped up by the end of the year or it becomes void, and the city has to go back to square one. In addition to that, former city attorney candidate Corey Briggs has said that the city is violating a state law called the Surplus Land Act that requires government selling land to build a certain amount of affordable housing, more than is in this plan right now. The city, of course, disagrees with that assessment. We will be following it. I may be voting right now. They're still doing city council questioning. We'll follow it. We'll bring you the latest on KPBS Radio later this afternoon and evening, and on KPBS Radio tomorrow morning, as well as kpbs.org. Live downtown in the East Village, John Carroll, KPBS News.
A site where an abandoned factory used to stand in southeastern San Diego is now being looked at as a model for community-based redevelopment. KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Jacob Ayer explains.
The Urban Land Institute, a national organization of real estate and land use experts, hosted a walking tour of Market Creek Plaza Tuesday. The site's decades-long redevelopment is being touted as the first project in the U.S. to be designed, built, and partially owned by neighborhood residents.
The redevelopment project is partially owned by community members and has taken place over the past 20 years. It includes housing, retail, education, and public use spaces like Choyas Creek.
The goal of the long-term construction is to create economic opportunity without displacing locals or fueling inequities. Jacobs Center for Neighborhood Innovation's Nari Cooper was one of the community investors in Market Creek Plaza.
The mall was built after the community said, we need a national grocery store. There was no grocery store in the region. We want a bank, we want a Starbucks, so there were different things that were specifically, high priorities for the community, and those things are in the mall today.
One topic that caused some disagreement was how to address housing in the area, according to Tony Young, the president of Rise San Diego.
And so how do we find a balance to build product that they can afford without creating just a whole bunch of low-income housing that maybe creates some more difficult issues for us, but also welcome people to be a part of the community also in the future.
Not everyone is excited about the changes. KPBS spoke with a woman that was shopping at Market Creek Plaza who wanted to only be identified as Deborah. She grew up in the community and says incomes for people who live in the neighborhood aren't keeping up with the rising cost of living.
Changes as far as providing more services to us is good, but the price that is happening right now is not good, not for people that live in this area.
The development will continue to be built in the surrounding areas, but gentrification is at the forefront of the minds of local community members. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
A North County community is also undergoing a transformation. Coming up on Evening Edition, a look at the projects revitalizing downtown Escondido. San Diego County supervisors will soon be voting on whether to approve spending $16 million on a new firefighting helicopter. Chair Nathan Fletcher showed off the twin-engine helicopter at Gillespie Field today. He'll be asking his fellow board members to approve buying it. Fletcher says San Diego County Sheriff's pilots explained to him just how valuable adding a twin-engine chopper to their fleet could be.
Two engines, if one goes down, the other one's still going, so you can fly at night. And we have a lot of times where we need these helicopters up at night fighting fires.
The twin engines also carry more water and can pick up water from more places. A chopper like this was proposed by former County Supervisor Diane Jacob about a decade ago, but the idea was never approved. The Board of Supervisors will consider the proposal at their meeting next week. California is making upgrades to its power grid to prevent rolling blackouts like we've seen in the past few years. This week, a major energy storage facility in Monterey Bay went online. And as Ariana Jasso reports, it comes from a partnership between PG&E and Tesla.
Moss Landing, now home to 2 energy storage facilities.
So it really is making the Monterey Bay this sort of hub of battery energy storage around the world.
On Monday, PG&E announced their Tesla Megapack battery is online and now considered to be one of the largest utility-owned lithium-ion battery storage systems in the world.
This system is really intended to help integrate renewable energy resources onto the grid, such as solar.
So the system takes advantage of renewable energy sources and stores that energy to be used when demand goes up. That's goal number 1.
So think of it when solar production is very high in California in the middle of the day, these batteries are charging. Really, this is just a great resource for helping to ensure that there's sufficient capacity and electricity on the grid.
Goal number 2, save you money in the long run. According to PG&E, they're able to store 4 hours worth of power when fully charged and can add just over 180 megawatts to the power grid each hour.
This will offset our need to go out and procure natural gas at times of peak demand and instead be able to discharge this renewable energy that's been stored in these batteries onto the grid.
The power company says it's a win-win for customers when it comes to reliability and cost saving.
This allows us to capture that solar energy at those lower prices when demand is not high and then discharge that onto the grid during that period of peak demand in the evenings.
In essence, it'll lessen capacity constraints, which will be vital in the coming hot summer months.
When energy demand is high, everyone's using their air conditioning, And so this will be a new resource and additional resources like this that'll help alleviate some of those capacity restraints and ensure grid reliability for all Californians.
And that was Ariana Jasso reporting. SDG&E is working on its own battery storage facilities. The utility company just finished the Ramona microgrid, one of 4 planned in remote high fire threat areas.
Well, we're in for a little bit of a change-up over this next week as we continue on. We're looking at a cooling trend through Friday. We will be looking at gusty winds as well in the mountains and across the desert. That southwest wind gusts up to 40 to 45 miles per hour throughout the day today. And minor rain chances, they're there, but they will be present throughout Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday. So we'll talk about that too. Here's a look at your wind advisories here from Borrego Springs all the way down to Pine Valley. Keep that in mind. Those southwest winds gusting up to 40 to 45 miles per hour throughout the day today. That does continue on till later on this evening, and temperatures taking it down to the 50s and even some 60s for San Diego. Clearing out though for your evening, and then take you into tomorrow, expecting temperatures to be in the 60s, mid 60s, possibly even some 70s in El Cajon. You're looking at 71 there for Borrego Springs, 83 degrees in Mount Laguna. It'll be a cooler day for you, about 54. When you add on the winds, it might feel a little cooler than that too. By the time we head into Wednesday, we'll watch this weak wave of energy kind of dive farther south, so rain chances will be picking up across the coast. You could see 1/10 of an inch, and into the higher elevations, we could see up to 1/4 of an inch for some rain. So let's take a look at the 5-day forecast here at the coast. You're looking at temperatures staying around seasonable. We do start to see the above average trend by the time we get into Sunday. So again, this is going to be a similar trend that we see inland as well, with temperatures at or around average for this time of year. By the weekend, we go on the up and up on that above average swing, and by Sunday, you're back into the mid 80s. Across the mountains, taking a dip with the windy conditions, much cooler for your Friday. Temperatures in the 30s. You'll start to see the warming trend pick back up by Saturday. And for the desert, take a look at temperatures. Taking a dip once again for your Friday, but by Saturday and Sunday, we'll see temperatures back in the low to mid 80s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Michelle Rotella.
Some COVID relief funds authorized last year to help small businesses may be off the table. $2 billion that have not yet been dispersed are on the chopping block by Congress. The money is left over from 8 programs and part of a larger $10 billion package that would help business owners pay for COVID vaccines, testing, and treatments. The Biden administration has asked Congress for more funding to fight COVID. Senate Republicans want new funding to be offset by relief money already passed by Congress. With gas prices at record highs and inflation still rising, Feeding San Diego held a food distribution event to support struggling families. Today's event was the 18th held at Pechanga Arena, San Diego, since beginning monthly distributions during COVID-related shutdowns. A spokesperson says lines are even longer now.
High food costs being so high. So if we can just at least help provide food for people that need help, at least it's one less thing hopefully they have to worry about.
Since February 2021, distributions at Pechanga Arena, San Diego have served more than 11,000 families and almost 40,000 people. Feeding San Diego has distributed more than 600,000 pounds of food, providing more than 1.5 million meals. Escondido's historic downtown is undergoing a makeover that could make it turn into another local Little Italy. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne shows us the projects that are revitalizing Escondido's Grand Avenue.
Dust, drilling, and construction workers have filled Grand Avenue in Escondido, where the Grand Tea Room is located. While tea and construction aren't the best combo, Luisa Magoon, the owner of the tea room, says she doesn't mind it.
It's been a couple months, yeah, but it's okay. We're excited about the end result.
She's talking about the Grand Avenue Vision Project, a plan to improve Escondido's historic Grand Avenue to drive more businesses and visitors into the city. Magoon says the improvements came from requests made to the city by business owners on Grand.
We gave them ideas, you know, widening the sidewalks and putting more plants in and you know, just the different ideas. And so we were super excited when we found out that they were actually listening and doing something about it.
Jennifer Shunick is the Deputy Director of Economic Development with the City of Escondido. She says changes to Grand Avenue will be implemented in phases.
The Grand Avenue Vision construction project is really the first phase in revitalizing downtown Escondido. The benefits from this project are going to help draw people to downtown, help businesses expand their operations.
She says outdoor dining helped many businesses survive the pandemic, and the wider sidewalks will make the patios permanent.
So during the pandemic, we were able to issue temporary use permits for all of the restaurants that wanted to have an outdoor dining option. And that's something we definitely want to continue with the improvements that are happening on Grand Avenue.
In addition to wider sidewalks, traffic on Grand will narrow down to one lane in each direction. Parking spaces will be added and string lighting will go up. Shunick says changes will only be seen on the north side of Grand Avenue before construction comes to a pause, right before the annual Cruisin' Grand Classic Car Meet resumes from May to September.
Cruising Grand is a really important event in our downtown area, and we want to make sure that the event organizers feel comfortable with the state of Grand Avenue when that event starts.
Then construction for the next phase is planned to start again in early 2023. Shunick says a completion date for the full Grand Avenue Vision Plan is yet to be determined, because only about half of the $15 million project has been funded. Most of the businesses on Grand Avenue are excited about the improvements that are happening here in the downtown area. But there's another project that has a big part in Escondido's revitalization. And that project is taking place all the way at the end of Grand Avenue, where Palomar Hospital used to be. It's not there anymore, and it's made way for Palomar Heights, a new development that's going to be catered to residents and businesses.
If you stand at the Escondido sign at the end of Grand and you look down, historically you would see the large 9-story tower of the hospital. And now that that has been demolished, we wanted to create another landmark, create another beacon.
Ninia Hammond is with Integral Communities. The developer is replacing Palomar Hospital with Palomar Heights. It's a mixed-use development, and the plans call for over 500 homes, some luxury and some what the developers call attainably priced.
Our idea was to bring a product type to the market that was smaller in size and lower in bedroom count to try to create a product that was attainably priced. And what we describe that as is an entry-level buyer.
90 rental units will also be specifically for seniors 55 and over. Plus, it includes some retail and restaurants.
That was one of the reasons why we tried to be careful about the amount of retail that we incorporated. We wanted it to be additive and not cannibalize the existing retail.
Hammond says construction of the development will take between 3 to 5 years. And back at the Grand Tea Room, Luisa Magoon is looking forward to what's ahead.
But we're hoping that with all the improvements that are going on and with Palomar Heights building all those apartments and condos, that it draws more businesses to want to move into downtown in addition to the customers.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Moderna says its first bivalent COVID-19 booster shot candidate is showing promise. Bivalent vaccines stimulate an immune response against 2 different antigens. Officials say the vaccine is comprised of the current vaccine with new updates that are based on the beta variant. It induces greater antibody responses against Omicron and other versions of the virus in comparison to the original booster shot. A separate bivalent booster candidate, this one with an Omicron-specific vaccine, is likely to come out first, possibly later this year. Sexually transmitted diseases have been on the rise for years across the country, San Diego County included. Rates of chlamydia and gonorrhea are 2 and 3 times what they were in the year 2000. And syphilis has seen an even greater resurgence. As Jake Harper of iNewsSource reports, sexual health experts are concerned.
If you look at a graph of the latest STD figures in San Diego County, you'll see they dip in 2020. But experts say those numbers are probably a fluke caused by COVID. Remember, clinics closed or reduced services in 2020. People didn't go to the doctor as much. And Dr. Winston Tillman, who manages STD prevention for the county, says doctors may have written prescriptions to treat STDs without actually ordering lab tests. which is how the county keeps track.
So I imagine that the numbers in 2020 are related to decreased testing, and so it probably underestimates the actual burden of STIs in 2020.
As new data comes in, Tillman expects the numbers to continue going up. People of color, men who have sex with men, and transgender women are all more likely to contract these infections than others. San Diego County has seen an increase in STD funding in recent years, but so far it hasn't stopped the growth. Meanwhile, nationwide, these diseases cost billions of dollars a year. Eric Walsh-Buhai, a researcher at San Diego State University, says more public health spending is crucial, and it hasn't come through, partly because of stigma.
Another thing we need to be fighting is that stigma of even talking about it and making it a public health priority.
For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Jake Harper.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Turtle Reef is back open at SeaWorld San Diego, offering guests new ways to explore and to learn. The habitat had been closed since last October. For updates, guests can get an up-close look at threatened green and loggerhead sea turtles, as well as tropical fish. SeaWorld is hosting daily turtle talks, and that starts on April 23rd to share information, rescue stories, and answer questions about the species. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.